This week on Jersey Matters, we have a big update on the Randolph Township School Board decision to erase the names of all holidays on school calendars. Gas prices are rising fast. What's causing it, and how high can the price go? We get some answers. We'll take a close look at the wisdom of vaccinating children, and the State Department cap on New Jersey wine may finally be coming to an end. Hello, and welcome to the 200th show of Jersey Matters. And we begin today with a Jersey story that has made news around the world when the Randolph Township School Board in Morris County decided to erase the names of all holidays from their school calendar. And we have an important update today. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know you have some breaking news right off the top, so let's get to that. What's happened?
Well, we found out that the school board in Randolph, New Jersey, has now called a special meeting at 5:30 on Monday, the 21st, to bring up a reconsideration of their two votes, the one to eliminate all holidays, and of course, what started this all is the one to eliminate Columbus Day.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, what I hope happens is that they rescind both of those votes, that they make a motion to rescind both of those votes and bring the calendar back to the way it was before May 13th, when they started all of this discrepancy by bringing up the elimination of Columbus Day and then all holidays. I hope that's the way it goes, but hey, you never know.
So this all started with them wanting to change Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. That's how you got involved. Let's go back to that moment. How did it evolve from there?
Well, absolutely. Back at the May 13th meeting of the regular school board meeting, without any public input and without it being on the agenda, this school board, the Randolph School Board, voted unanimously to eliminate Columbus Day and replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day. And that was with not even a 2-minute discussion. And they changed the calendar. And that caused a tremendous outrage from the local residents, parents, students, as well as residents who contacted us at the Italian American One Voice Coalition. And then, of course, we put it out on the news through all of our social media and so forth. And the protests started to really grow.
Right. And then there's a packed house at the Randolph Township School Board meeting, a packed house. And what happened then?
So then at June 10th, you had all these people that came down to the meeting. They had then it on the agenda, and they had to extend their public portion 3 times to an hour and a half of public portion, with over 25 people expressing their objection to eliminating Columbus Day and changing the school calendar. But then what happened is that once they closed to the public, they then took a unanimous vote to eliminate all holidays. And that was their ludicrous way of addressing the Columbus holiday situation. It was just incredible. No one could believe it at the meeting.
No, I've heard audio of this when you could hear the crowd saying, wait, what's happening? What are you doing? And they said, there's no debate here. That's probably the biggest problem. I mean, their action was awful, but it may not have happened had they had any kind of public input, had they had some kind of debate. Instead, they just took a unilateral action. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's really a comedy of errors here. Their first vote bringing it up without even having any discussion, no public input, and not even on the agenda. And then after all that input about Columbus Day, they go ahead and remove all the holidays without anything. And as you said, people were shocked at the meeting. They just couldn't believe it. People were shouting out, what just happened?
You were there, right? You were there.
Oh, yeah, I was absolutely there. And we had a large group of people there, and also a lot of concerned parents and students that spoke out against their actions.
So on Monday, I'm sure there's going to be public input into this.
Yeah,
I would expect you're expecting, again, a packed house, maybe even more people, because this story has gone national.
Well, actually, it's gone international. It was carried in the UK and in other countries as well. It's really just an unbelievable approach of, eliminating really everything. And, you were talking about eliminating Martin Luther King Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Yom Kippur. I mean, geez, they were an equal opportunity insulter when they took this off. First they insulted Italian Americans and actually all Americans with Columbus Day. And then by taking this all off, the story just became huge. And I absolutely agree with you. I'm going to be there Our other people from our organization is going to be there, but I believe there's going to be a lot more people at that meeting on Monday.
What if on Monday they say, we're going to fix the calendar, but we still want to make it Indigenous People Day?
Well, then they're still being insensitive to Italian Americans, because Columbus is an important symbol to Italian Americans as an apology or an atonement for the tremendous discrimination, denigration, and even the largest lynching that ever occurred in America of 11 Italian Americans. And Columbus, since 1892, was America's apology to those generations of Italian Americans that went through that. So if they do that at the school board, hey, we're not going away. We're going to keep at this. And we've laid out a 4-point plan, and they need to, for one of the points of that plan is they need to have sensitivity training at that school for the plight of Italian Americans and not just shut us out like that.
Well, it's great to talk to you again. And please, let's talk one more time after Monday. I'd love to get your reaction.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Larry.
Andre Domino of the Italian American One Voice Coalition. Still to come on Jersey Matters, how high can gas prices go? We get some answers from AAA next. Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm sure you've noticed that gas prices just keep going up. They're the highest they've been in 7 years, but the question is, how high are they going to go? We get some answers from Robert Sinclair, Senior Manager of Public Affairs for AAA in Northeast America. As always, thanks a lot for talking to us. I think everybody has noticed that gas prices have gone up. I guess the question is, how much have they gone up? What are you seeing?
Wow, we've been seeing gasoline prices go up probably since about mid-March. I would say they've probably gone up 25 cents since the beginning of the year, maybe 15 or 20 cents since mid-March. You've got the normal cycle in the lowering and raising of gasoline prices. They tend to bottom out during the winter and peak sometime in June, July, or August, usually after the first official day of summer. You've got that also combined with the fact that we're seeing a lot of investment going into crude oil, with investors thinking that this is going to be a busy year for gasoline, with people roaring back, eager to travel after being locked down for so long. And a lot of investment money was pouring into crude oil. That's been curbed a little bit by the news yesterday that the Federal Reserve is thinking about raising interest rates to forestall inflation. And with all oil trading done in dollars, those with foreign currencies have to trade to dollars. And if the dollar strengthens as a result of higher interest rates, then that might cool off the investment in crude oil a little bit, which might put a damper on the price hikes of crude. But crude this morning was $72 a barrel, and it was just $66 a barrel a month ago. So we're seeing a lot of factors playing into the increase of gasoline prices.
Well, that's a whole lot of information. Let me deal with all of that in a second.
Okay.
First, let's talk about New Jersey. How is New Jersey doing as compared to the rest of the country?
New Jersey's average right now is 307 per gallon. That is exactly the same as the national average. In our local area, New York City is kind of the loss leader with the highest average at 321 per gallon. Long Island at 311, I should say, and Connecticut at 309. If we go back a year, everything is about $1 higher compared to a year ago. If you look at the last normal year of 2019, New Jersey was at 277 back then. So significantly higher back then. And really, that's kind of counterintuitive, because demand compared to the last normal year of 2019 is off about 15%. We're coming back, but we're not where we were, not all the way just yet. So, and gasoline prices are higher. So go figure.
So let's dive into some of the reasons for this, because you hear a lot out there as to the possible reasons. You hear things that they're not able to get enough supply because they can't get truck drivers to come back to work. And you hear a lot that it's just regular inflation. So much money has been pumped into the economy through stimulus bills and other things, even just increase in pay, because trying to get workers to come back to work, that's pushing inflation, that it's just regular inflation. Do either of those things hold? Because I know that there is some political taint to some of those theories.
Well, all of the above, but except mainly the political aspect. Who the president is has nothing to do with where gasoline prices are right now. Definitely, some stations are having a problem staying wet, meaning all the pumps have enough gasoline so that they all work, and that is indeed, as you say, due to not having enough truck drivers. Demand was off anywhere from 50 to 60 to 70% for gasoline last year. And so they didn't need as many truck drivers. Many of them found other jobs, probably driving for online delivery services. And they're having a tough time getting drivers back to drive those gasoline trucks. Inflation is also part of the reason. Demand, though, that's still off compared to a couple of years ago.
So is there a trajectory to this? Can you see it continuing to rise, or should it level off? What normally happens?
Normally we peak sometime between the first celestial day of summer and Labor Day, sometime between late June, July, and August. And that's normal, but things are very unnormal now, if I can use that word. And the gasoline market, oil and gasoline market, is extremely fickle. It can be news coming out of the Middle East. There might be a threat of an attack of some oil facility overseas that will create what's called the fear tax, where the price of crude oil will jump. And the only thing that's happened is that there's been some speculation about something going on. It could be a storm, and we see a storm brewing right now in the Gulf of Mexico. If that turns into a real powerhouse storm and hits the Gulf Coast, which is sort of the breadbasket for oil and gasoline for the entire Eastern Seaboard, we could see prices go up.
So it's the highest in 7 years. It could stay that way, and depending on demand going up, the trajectory could go up right through the summer. It
could get worse, or it could get better. But there are more factors in place to make it get worse, actually.
Really? Okay. Well, thanks for cheering us up.
Robert Sinclair of AAA Northeast. Still to come on Jersey Matters.
Last month, the FDA approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for children over the age of 12, but not all parents are on board. More on that story next.
The 200 Club of Monmouth County honored police officers from 6 departments this year at its annual Valor Awards luncheon at Spring Lake Golf Club. Several officers received awards for their heroic efforts. The 200 Club of Monmouth County provides financial assistance to families of fallen or seriously injured first responders. The FDA has approved the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for children from the ages from 12 to 16, but many parents are reluctant to get the vaccine for their children because they're concerned about long-term effects. Our Jennifer Marin spoke with a pediatrician and some concerned parents. Jennifer.
Dr. Noah Pollack has been a pediatrician here at Progressive Pediatrics for over 20 years now. She says COVID-19 vaccines for children are safe and efficient. And although some parents do agree with her, others say not so fast. Rachel Lucas is one of the many parents attending rallies to voice her opinion against COVID-19 vaccines for children.
It's not happening. I don't like putting things in his body that I don't know the long-term effects of.
Rachel has a 13-year-old son and says there's nothing that'll change her mind in the near future.
It's not tested enough. There's too much information about infertility that I'm 100% concerned about.
Dr. Noah Pollack has been a pediatrician for 25 years at Progressive Pediatrics. She understands that parents are concerned, but has this to say.
This is misinformation. There's no infertility in males or females due to the COVID-19 vaccine that has been proven at all.
Rachel also feels that because of his age, her son is low risk.
It doesn't affect his age group at all. So, I mean, he would be, if he got it, I'd prefer natural immunity than synthetic.
Although Dr. Pollack agrees that children fall into a lower risk category, she insists that there's still a risk.
Thousands of children in the United States have been hospitalized with COVID. Hundreds have died. Yes, it is less likely that your child will get very sick with COVID, but it is not impossible.
Other parents like Renee Bagley fear the possibility of myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart recently reported in some children who received their second doses of the COVID-19 vaccine.
It's a very, very rare side effect. So the COVID-19 vaccine has many more benefits than risks, in my opinion.
But Renee's opinion differs.
I don't think that it's fair to not give them a choice or have a voice in determining their medical future.
But not all parents are opposed. We took to Facebook to ask many how they felt, and as you can see, quite a few are glad their children are inoculated. Dr. Polik says concerned parents should discuss the risks and benefits with their child's pediatrician. And in the meantime, has this message.
I myself gave it to my own children. I have taken it. I'd like them to know that it is a life-saving vaccine and that it is important to give your child this vaccine.
Now, Dr. Polik does tell me that some of the children who recovered from COVID-19 are now dealing with some long-term effects, such as fatigue and brain fog. For now, reporting in Union City, for Jersey Matters, I'm Jennifer Marin.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next on Jersey Matters.
Depression amongst the elderly community is a very real thing, especially coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll have more on that coming up next on Jersey Matters.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. As more and more of us get vaccinated, families are finally able to reconnect. But seniors have been isolated for almost a year and a half. And Jersey Matters' Kimberly Kravitz reports that has had a profound emotional effect. Kimberly.
Imagine the pain of waiting months and months to see your children or grandchildren again. Now imagine not knowing for sure whether or not you will see your children or grandchildren again. Depression among the elderly community is a very real thing, especially after hearing from this group of seniors.
I lost an older son last year.
Meet Ellen Mundy. She is one of many who are struggling with loss of loved ones throughout the last 15 months of lockdown.
He was homeless and he was on drugs. And he his birthday just passed in January.
Members of the Howell Township Senior Center tell me that it's a fine line between social distancing and social isolation.
Oh, it was terrible. We're so close, a very close family, children, grandchildren, so it was very hard for us.
Of course. We used to talk to ourselves, you know. It was horrible for the first 15 months.
Their whole world collapsed. They were definitely having anxiety. They were definitely feeling depressed. And then a lot of them were watching so much of the news and it was so negative and telling them all the things not to do that paranoia was also starting.
The virus at the start especially was still unknown and the senior population were most vulnerable.
It was scary, really scary, and you never knew when something might pop up and for yourself, so you had to stop and think twice, you know. And
A lot of times you feel there was no hope.
Very depressing, because during that time I was also diagnosed with bladder cancer. And I went into a real deep depression for about a month.
John and Florence, who've been married for 45 years, relied heavily on each other to get through this time.
Where we go together most of the time. Like if I was in the hospital, I'm lost without my wife. My wife is my strength. She's been my strength for 45 years. She's got me through a lot of hard times in my life.
Seniors who once relied on visits from caregivers or meals from senior centers were especially vulnerable.
We transitioned within a month or so of being an activity center to doing all sorts of social service type stuff for them. So we started getting eggs, we started getting milk, butter, deli meats, TV dinners. Their main meal used to be here at the center. A lot of them don't cook.
But now with the focus on herd immunity, many are feeling more positive and look forward to a safe future.
I had the first one, Moderna, on February 26th, which was my 94th birthday, and March 26th was the second shot.
I've seen some really bad things in my life, and like I said, Vietnam and everything. So I looked at it like, you know what? I mean, this is a disease, and you do what you got to do to not to get it, or whatever you have to do, and that's it.
Now, for those who are hesitant to return to their daily lifestyles or rejoining their senior centers, the experts recommend the old-fashioned phone chain to reconnect with their family and friends. Reporting from Howell Township for Jersey Matters, I'm Kimberly Kravitz.
Welcome back to the 200th show of Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Many of us survived the pandemic by having wine delivered to our homes. But did you know that certain wines are banned from being shipped to New Jersey because of a state government cap? New Jersey Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker says it's time to lift that cap. As always, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. You're always gracious with your time. We've done many stories on wineries in New Jersey and had many people in to talk about the fact that it's growing. I think booming might be too strong of a word, but it is growing. And yet they have to adhere to a capacity cap that you've pointed out in an editorial. Could you explain that?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Larry. I always appreciate a chance to talk with you. So New Jersey is we're one of only 2 states with this arbitrary capacity cap that says that if you produce more than about 100,000 cases of wine in a year, which is a medium-sized winery, then you can't ship to New Jersey, whether you're in New Jersey or you're out of New Jersey. You can understand why this was around at first, because New Jersey's getting its wine industry off the ground, literally. But at this point, New Jersey wines are excellent and hold their own with wines anywhere in the country. And so this is about not just about New Jersey wines as they grow, but allowing consumers in New Jersey to be able to ship to our homes whatever wines we may want. And it's a win-win all around.
Right. So it was a law that was first imposed to try to help wineries in New Jersey to compete with the big guys. But now, as the wineries in New Jersey start to become the big guys, it's now holding them back. Am I phrasing that correctly?
I think that's a part of it, right? So New Jersey wineries are headed towards being at this level. It's also, I was at a family wedding in California a few years ago. And as part of it, we stopped off after the wedding at a winery, tried a wine, and I wanted to ship it back. And they asked me where I live. When I said New Jersey, they said, we can't ship to you. And that's sort of what started it for me. I still go to my local wine stores. I still love spending a Saturday afternoon at a New Jersey winery, but it's also just a chance if I try a wine somewhere else or part of a wine club that I could have it shipped here. And the more wine that is drunk, the better for all, including our wonderful New Jersey wineries.
Explain that part of it. So there's people in New Jersey, because everybody during the pandemic, I did it, I know you do it, had wine shipped to them because they didn't want to go out. So it became big, it became really popular. And I think people are continuing to do that. But this capacity cap limits that?
What it does is exactly, it says you can only ship wine from small vineyards. And they make great wines, there's no mistake about it. But that's about 90% of the wine that's out there, you can't have shipped to your home. And so one thing to say, we've got an industry that we need to protect and allow them to grow and develop. They've done it now. So now it's really about consumer choice. And people have looked at this, and what they've seen is that a couple of things. One, by doing this, it actually raises revenue for New Jersey because these companies with out-of-state wineries have to license themselves, pay sales tax, et cetera. So there's more revenue that's coming in. But second, it has been shown that it actually, the more wine people drink, the more they want to drink. And so it's not a either or, a New Jersey wine or an out-of-state wine. It's actually both. So that's why it's a win-win.
How much money could be raised by this?
One estimate has a minimum of $3 million per year, at the low end up to perhaps $6 million from sales tax and licensing fees. So over the 9 years that this capacity cap has been in place, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of revenue that we've lost.
Well, thanks for calling this to our attention, because getting the wine you want is a big deal in New Jersey, especially during the pandemic.
I actually have a neighbor who told me he has a brother-in-law in Pennsylvania, and so he would have to have the wine shipped to his brother-in-law, and then when his wife was visiting her sister, she'd pick up the wine. That's silly, right? This is something that we should be able to fix relatively quickly and easily.
Good. When do you expect that to happen?
So I hope to have it done by the end of the year, right? We continue to progress as we're going through all this, having hearings. There's a hearing on the bill in the Senate today. So we're making good progress. I think we'll have this done, some point this year.
It seems so moronic. I can't believe it's going to take till the end of the year that you have to have here. Who's going to show up at the hearings and say that it has to be all in support, right?
It is. I mean, some people, like I said, some people have some concerns, but they just hear they learn what's going on, and then it all sort of drops away.
I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you, and for all the wine drinkers in New Jersey, we thank you for getting rid of this capacity limit.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Drink lots of wine, New Jersey wine, wherever else you may like, but do so responsibly.
New Jersey Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker. Still to come on Jersey Matters. You've heard of cryptocurrency, but what exactly is it? We'll try to get some answers from an expert next. We've all heard of cryptocurrency. It's in the news a lot. Sports stars ask for cryptocurrency instead of cash for a bonus. Russian hackers say they want cryptocurrency as ransom. But what exactly is it? We went to an expert for answers. Dr. James Stroud used to be a biochemist, but he gave it up to co-found a cryptocurrency investment company called Stealth R&D.
Doctor, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. So many of us have heard about cryptocurrency and may not be involved in investing in it simply because a lot of people aren't sure what it is or if it's safe. So I'd like to deal with some of those basic questions. Let's start with, what is cryptocurrency?
Well, a cryptocurrency is actually fairly simple when you think about it. What it is the first thing you think about is it's a ledger. So what's a ledger? It's kind of like what you're used to with your bank account, like ledger entry A, this person has, $10. Ledger entry B, this person has $5. Okay, now let's think about those dollars. Instead of dollars, those are Bitcoins. So when you make a transfer to somebody on a ledger, your balance gets deducted. Say you send 1 Bitcoin, which is a lot of money, but if you send 1 Bitcoin, your balance gets deducted by 1 Bitcoin, their balance gets increased by a Bitcoin. And so what you have here is a record of the transactions. Now, this is something everybody's familiar with. You might balance your checkbook, you might be an accountant, see this all the time. What's interesting about this is the same copy of the ledger is on a bunch of different computers at once. So I could have a copy of it and you could have a copy of it. And still, it doesn't seem like there's any magic involved. But here's the magic, is that when my copy is updated, your copy is updated, but then no intermediary, no middleman is ever conferred in that process, because we have established a way to reach what is known as consensus, which all consensus means is my copy is the same as your copy. And therein lies the magic. And how that magic is achieved is actually very technical, but it can be achieved, and it can be theoretically proved that your copy is the same as my copy, and that we both agree at any given time without ever directly communicating to each other and without ever consulting an authority on that sequence of transactions or that final state of the ledger.
So how do people make money on this?
Well, these days, that is a very intricate question, but typically in history, you bought some and you held and it went up. So if you would have bought Bitcoin whenever I got involved in it, you could have bought it for, I bought my first Bitcoin at $866. And now it's pushing, I didn't check the price today, but it's something like $56,000 or $55,000. It could be less or more, but it's around in there. So that's typically how it has happened in the past. These days, cryptocurrency has evolved from those ledger entries. Bitcoin has evolved from the ledger entries. That's all it really is that distributed ledger I was talking about. But these days, there's something called decentralized finance, all involve risks and are very complicated. But typically, it's just buy low and sell high.
I think it was something just for tech heads for a little bit, but now it's gone mainstream. People I wouldn't expect to be talking about it are talking about it. I go to family gatherings and people are talking about what their favorite cryptocurrency is. So I know you're involved heavily in this, and congratulations to you. I think that you've created a brand new investment, and there's nowhere to go but up. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 10 more years.
Oh yeah, I totally feel the same way. I'm personally just extremely bullish on the whole technology, and it's really great being in it since 2014 to see the interest in it, to know that you were on the right track so many years ago when I discovered this technology. It's definitely bullish. The outlook is definitely bullish. The technology is going, and the reasons are for this is there's going to be more interest, and there's going to be increases in the technology and what it can do. And as people figure out things it can do, invent things to do with the technology, more interest will go, and it will permeate our lives more.
Wow. Hey, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really appreciate your time. Dr. James Stroud, Stealth R&D. Next on Jersey Matters.
I'm Phil Anderson. Coming up on Jersey Matters, we'll talk about the rise in cybercrimes and how they may affect you.
Well, unless you guys live under a rock, you pretty much noticed that there's been a big change in our weather from late in the week to the weekend. The summer muggies have come back. It's uncomfortable. We got a chance of some showers and thunderstorms, especially late in the day. And that mugginess is going to be sticking around into about Monday. Then a cold front comes through, and that should actually help us out big time. Generally, temperatures are going to be around average. We have some cooler stuff coming down from the Great Lakes that should settle up around the Ohio Valley. That doesn't really mean that we're going to be chilly. We're on the peripherals here. I'm thinking around average. Temperatures generally in the lower 80s. No extreme heat waves in sight. We're in the hottest stretch of weather that we're going to see in a while right now. So temperatures around 90 degrees over the weekend. We're watching the potential for some rain associated with the tropical system that's impacting the Gulf of Mexico. If that lines up just right with the cold front, could be looking at some beneficial rain on your Tuesday. Here's your 7-day outlook. Warm weather sticks around through Tuesday, cooling down midweek.
Here at River Street Sweet Savannah Candy Kitchen, we offer happiness through candy.
We are a foundation for people for hope and offering jobs, and we are always still looking for people. I love my road. I love the co-workers. I love how they include me in. Actually, this is a special place for me that I started to job. Now I'm starting a journey, a new chapter in my life. Every day I feel positive to move forward in my life.
I've been seeing the hiring of a lot of great people throughout my career here. Their mission is one which I hope can succeed.
Transfer real fast. Perfect. Grab a scoopful of peanuts. Yeah. Sprinkle all around.
Not like this, like a covering like that.
I'm good. Very good.
During COVID, we really needed hope. And by opening up in July last year, we started that hope. And we want that to continue. We want people to invest in businesses that can provide hope to communities and people. This year, we are celebrating our first birthday, July 2nd and July 3rd. Actually, we're making it a whole week. And we are also celebrating Asbury Park's 150th birthday.
My family history is from Asbury Park. Grandfather came over from Europe and he settled here, raised a family. My father was born here, so there was a lot of family roots in Asbury. Some of the things we often hear that you won't find anywhere else are the obviously world famous pralines, the loggerheads, Irish potatoes, pretzel bark.
We have basically every type of candy, from our gummy candies to our world famous pralines. Oh great, now there's a candy shop in Asbury. Has been quite successful.
So this taffy is made homemade taffy. It's amazing that actually the atmosphere can actually really affect your candy. So being close to the beach, being close, having a windy day, having the rain, having cold in the winter versus summer really affects the taffy.
This is a candy roll. So we got all different kinds of candy. We have cheddar beans, gummies.
Our mainstay is to give back and to help those who need.
If you want a job, please come. We want workers, yes, but we want people that for longevity, that want to do something for the community, for people.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. In this post-pandemic world where remote learning and remote work has become the norm, cybercrime is on the rise. Jersey Matters' Phil Andrews has some tips to keep you from becoming a victim. Phil.
Yeah, during the height of the pandemic, most of us, if not all of us, were forced to communicate via our computers and, of course, social media. Businesses had their employees work via the computer virtually. Schools did virtual learning, so did colleges. And many political events and political gatherings and meetings were also done virtually. Unfortunately, it also left many of us vulnerable to hacking and Zoom bombing, which apparently is not that hard to do.
It's extremely easy, Phil. I mean, it's so much more easy than you think. See, the problem with video conferencing, a company like a Zoom, and by the way, it's not just Zoom, there are many other companies similar, that the way that they architected their system was to just share a link. In other words, you get a link, you click on it, you're in. Who can't do that? And today, so many people are taking those, I'm going to be at this conference, or I'm going to be, there's a meeting with this group, some group, and they'll take that link and they'll share it on their social media. So people could just see it on social media and instantly go and bomb in on that.
George Waller is the Executive Vice President of Strikeforce Technologies here in Edison, and his company has created a platform that makes it almost impossible to hack.
So we have strong authentication to prevent the bad guys from getting in, unwanted people. We then have a browser-only interface, so all you have to do is you need a browser. That stops hackers from going after that desktop client so that they can't infect it. So we built a component that sits on your computer and locks down your entire computer.
Meanwhile, on a larger scale, foreign entities are consistently trying to hack into our nation's infrastructure, like the recent ransomware attacks that forced the shutdowns of the Colonial Fuel Pipeline and the JBS Meat Market, which of course begs the question, just how safe is the Garden State?
Lots of organizations across New Jersey have experienced, cyber attacks, and it's not a matter of being attacked. It's a matter of being resilient to the attack. You're not going to stop every threat that's out there. Just like every hurricane, we're not going to stop the hurricanes, but we can make ourselves more resilient to them.
Michael Garrity is the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of New Jersey, and it's his job to keep an eye on cybersecurity. What about the average American sitting at home in their family room, on their desktop, on their laptop, working on their computer? What advice would you give them to avoid being attacked?
Make sure you use strong passwords that are unique to each online service. Don't share, don't reuse those passwords. Bad actors know those passwords, they're going to use them. Wherever you can, use multi-factor authentication. And I say that because passwords are not good enough anymore. We see so many compromises because people use the same passwords over and over and over. Bad guys get them, and now they're using them in their place. So multi-factor authentication is something you know, which is your password, as well as something that you have. And that may be your cell phone that you receive a token to when you're authenticating to an online service. Use those wherever possible. Keep your devices up to date with the latest security patches, and download them and update them as soon as they become available. Install good antivirus software and keep that up to date as well. And then treat every unsolicited email, text message, and phone call with a healthy dose of suspicion. Okay, there are so many different scams out there, so many different offers that sound too good to be true. So many of these communications that include a sense of urgency, and it's all in part of a fraud that bad actors are trying to commit.
So remember, if you get an email that looks too good to be true, it probably is. And if you get an email from somebody you don't recognize, remember to think before you link. For Jersey Matters, I'm Phil Andrews.
All right, thank you, Phil. As we've mentioned a couple of times now, this is our 200th Jersey Matters show. That means we have been bringing news and information to the citizens of New Jersey for over 5 years now. We take that responsibility extremely seriously, and we thank you for watching because you make it possible. My commentary is next. Here we go again. There isn't even a seat open on the Supreme Court, and already there's a controversy over how to fill it. This is all happening because Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell was on a radio show and said that should the Republicans win the midterm elections and he becomes Majority Leader, he would apply the Scalia rule to Biden's nominee if it happened before the presidential election. The late conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia died suddenly in February of 2016. That was in the last year of Barack Obama's presidency. The 2016 presidential primaries had just begun. Donald Trump would win for the Republicans and Hillary Clinton for the Democrats. During that time, President Obama nominated Merrick Garland to replace Antonin Scalia. Famously, then Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to even consider President Obama's nominee. He wouldn't hold confirmation hearings because he argued it was a presidential year and you should allow the next president to select the Supreme Court justice. The next person, surprisingly, was Donald Trump. He nominated Neil Gorsuch. Mitch McConnell was more than happy to hold confirmation hearings, and Gorsuch is now a Supreme Court justice. And if the Republicans take the Senate in next year's midterm elections, and there's a good chance that would happen, and there happens to be an open Supreme Court seat, McConnell told the radio show he would do the exact same thing and refuse to hold confirmation hearings.
Well, I think in the middle of a presidential election, if you have a Senate of the opposite party of the president, you have to go back to the 1880s to find the last time a vacancy was filled. So I think it's highly unlikely. In fact, no, I don't think either party, if it were different from the president, would confirm a Supreme Court nominee in the middle of an election.
The phone was a little garbled there, but Mitch McConnell just said that neither party, if they controlled the Senate, would ever consider a Supreme Court nominee made by a president from the opposing party. That's the Scalia rule. In 2020, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died less than 2 months before the presidential election. Donald Trump was running for re-election against Democrat Joe Biden. But Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rushed the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett right through because the Senate was controlled and the White House was controlled by Republicans, the same party. Right now, the Senate is split 50-50, but the Democrats hold the majority. because they won the White House and Vice President Kamala Harris gets the deciding vote. Like I said, there's a good chance the Republicans might take the Senate back in 2022, and that means the clock is ticking. The Democrats have less than a year and a half to take more control of the Supreme Court. It seems like the idea of adding more seats to the Supreme Court, called court packing, isn't going anywhere because President Biden and several Democratic senators aren't too keen on the idea. Which leaves the Democrats in a desperate position, and all of their angst is aimed at this poor guy, 82-year-old Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, who was nominated to the court in 1994 by Bill Clinton and has been a consistent progressive vote for the Democrats on the Supreme Court. But Democrats now want him to retire at the end of this Supreme Court session, which is June 30th, so that Joe Biden and the Democrats can replace him with a younger version of himself and secure a seat on the Supreme Court for decades instead of years.
There is no question that Justice Breyer, for whom I have great respect, should retire at the end of this term. I mean, my goodness, have we not learned our lesson?
That was New York Congressman Mondaire Jones, who said out loud on television what other Democrats have been whispering behind closed doors. And since he said that, he got some big name support.
Yeah, I believe that we should protect our Supreme Court, and I thought that should absolutely be a consideration.
So just to be clear, you do think that Justice Stephen Breyer should retire at the end of this term?
You know, it's something I'd think about, but I would probably lean towards yes.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's reluctance right there is to be expected because it is discouraged, even illegal, in workplaces to put pressure on an employee to retire because of his or her age. But she's not alone. The idea is picking up even more support, especially because during the campaign, Joe Biden said this.
I committed that if I'm elected president and have an opportunity to appoint someone to the courts, I'll appoint the first black woman to the courts. It's required that they have representation now. It's long overdue.
Which raises an interesting question. Would Mitch McConnell, should he be majority leader, really block the first African-American nominee to the Supreme Court? The Democrats think the resounding answer is yes. So now there is even a truck billboard riding around Washington, D.C., pleading for Justice Breyer to step down. This all is just the latest Supreme Court intrigue, where now a Supreme Court justice is being pressured to step down simply because of his age. I'm Larry Menti. We'll talk again soon.